is now fired. So that's kind of cool. And in this parameter here, you're going to see the model, and it should have the values that I entered. See how that is? And I didn't do all the hooks for that, other than I didn't make this model object have the values that came from the client's browser. That's the Razor View Engine. It's got to be the Razor View Engine that's doing all that magic for us. So that's really cool. And so now we can step through this model state, and you're going to see that this is valid because the username and password were submitted. And so now we're going to step through it. Okay, we're going to step through it. And here we go. Let's oh, I'm sorry. Problems with the Camtasia. Notice how it failed to log in, which is good. I mean, that's what we expected. And now it's going to go into the model state, add model error. Now, because it failed, it's going to return this view. The user will be brought back to this same login page. If authentication succeeded, then we would have been redirected to the index at home, and all of this other code would have been ignored. Oh. Camtasia has the same shortcut keys as. There you go. Okay, so you can see invalid username or password was passed to the client after it was authenticated, and that's solely because of this line of code right here. So you can see how the Razor View Engine, the HTML helpers and whatnot, adds a lot of bang for our buck here. We didn't have to do all that code. So now let's log in with the correct password, username, and we will step through again just to. So model name, username is Jed, password is Albao, so it should authenticate. And now we're going to set the cookie. Turn. And now we're back to the home page, because where it succeeded here, it redirected us to the home page. So now let's take a look at the cookie that is set. When you log in successfully. Oh, by the way, let's go look at our cookies right now. Oops. Notice how we have 0 cookies. Alright, so let's go back to log in. And now we are in the welcome page. And if we go to our cookies, you can see now we have a cookie called .aspx auth, like authorized, and we have this gnarly serial value here that identifies me, which is very cool. That's all I have to say about that. I guess I should mention that this cookie came from this forms authentication set auth cookie. Oh, let's find out. Let's look at this. So this is set to false. The forms authentication.set auth cookie is set to false for the what's it called again? Create persistent cookie. And what that should do is when I close my browser here, and open it back up and go back to the web page and go back into my cookies, You see it's gone. However, if I put this to true, build it, and now go back to our web page. We're going to need to log in as well. If I look at the cookie, there it is. I have my ASPX auth cookie. And now let's close the browser, open it back up again. Go back to the website. If I go look at the cookie, it's still there. So it persists the auth cookie for me, which is good because it's a good option to have. Alright. At this point we just have two pages, a home page and a login page, and the login page does nothing more than authenticates the username and password. If the authentication succeeds, then it sets the auth cookie, the ASPX auth cookie on the client browser. And of course there's the client validation stuff. But this isn't too helpful right now. What we want to do is creating a website that the user actually enters into after he's authenticated. So if he were to go to the home page, we don't want him to be able to see this. Let's just assume that this home page is a secure page, and nobody should see this except authenticated users. And for the just for fun, we're going to add other pages. Let's just say that there is a profile page. So I'll create another controller called profile, and we'll add a view to that. We'll put profile. Here is your profile. My computer's running slow. Okay. We'll add a couple more. Let's add a foo bar. There's a foo. Oh, I don't want this strongly typed. Oops. On the other one, the one that I just created called profile, that has, I accidentally made it a strongly typed view. All I have to do is delete that to get rid of that. Okay, so we have a foo. Let's just create a bar to be thorough here. Man, my computer's running so slow. Okay. Okay, so now we have a few more pages. Foo, bar, home, login, profile. These are all, think of them as different web pages. And each of these views have their corresponding controller. Now we want each of these views, bar, foo, the ones we just created, to be not accessible by anonymous users. Right now, as it stands, I can just run it. I can run our application, and I can just go to bar, and I will see the bar. Foo, profile, login. Don't want to step through that anymore. And so forth. Okay, so we want to lock that down. We want to lock down the other pages. So to do that, we go into our web config file. Double click the web config, which do not get confused with the web config that exists in the views directory. Use the web config that exists outside of all of the directories. And so inside of the configuration attribute, we're going to add the location and a path. We're going to say everything. This is the syntax for locking down everything. System.web authorization. We're going to deny all anonymous users. So what this means is all anonymous users will not be able to access anything. So let's just see what happens if we build this and then try to go home here in our browser. If I go here, okay, so you can see that we got an exception because I'm an anonymous user and I locked down everything of the website. So how does that work? And notice how the URL changed here to account/login. What's that all about? The reason why there's two reasons why we're seeing this error. Number one is because we locked down all of the directories or files, and so therefore there's nothing for me, the anonymous user, to even see. Secondly, because the Razor View Engine took me over to, actually it's the MVC probably, took me over to account/login. And that is defined in the web config file as well. When we scroll down into the system web section underneath authentication mode forms. So here in the web config we're specifying that we want authentication to be done via the forms mode, and the login URL is pointing to account/login. Well, if we just change that to where our login form is at, then we're good. By default, MVC creates it at the account/login. And we'll change the timeout to 15 minutes instead of 2 days. Okay, so now if we run this, build it, and now refresh the page, we get sent to the login page. Notice how MVC took us automatically to login, the login URL. And if I now type in home, nope. If I type in bar, nope. Profile, nope. Or food. So everything that contains a view in our website here is locked down, and it always takes me back to this login form, which is pretty nice. So let's log in and see if anything happens. Let's fail a login first. So we'll just type in something. Invalid username or password. And notice how this happened. When I sent the submitted my query and it failed, well, bottom line, the client-side validation is no longer working. If I click this, notice how it refreshes the page and then finally tells me the password field is required, and I'm missing my styles. It's not red anymore or yellow, and this isn't red anymore. So the reason why that is because I locked down all directories, including the scripts directory where our JavaScript or jQuery packs live at, and including our content where our style sheet lives. So we have to open that up. So the way we do that is we can just copy this guy, save us a couple seconds, and we want to say, hey, the content directory, allow all users, and we'll add another one to the scripts directory. I'm going to build that. And now let's refresh this page. Okay, notice how the font changed, so you can infer that the CSS is there. Now I'm going to submit this, and let's pay attention to here to see if it refreshes or not. it doesn't.